This is heroic. The triumphant melody held in the brass and the wind section of the orchestra, the marching rhythm in the drums, the overall grandious timbre of the whole orchestra. Pantheon is a hero, in the truest sense of the word. When we dig into his musical theme, we discover that his journey, a typical hero's journey, unveils in front of us. It starts with his humble beginnings, continues with a call to adventure, so to speak. The music then presents obstacles that get eventually overcome as our hero returns back home, changed and scarred by the events he went through. Yet, in his core, he stays the same. A hero. American writer Joseph Campbell popularized the term hero's journey, a template that describes a person going on an adventure. Many years later, Christopher Vogler, Hollywood development executive, screenwriter, and author, summarized Campbell's thoughts and created the template for this monomyth or hero's journey that is most commonly used today. Both men envisioned the journey as a circle. It begins and ends at the ordinary world. The initial step is that our hero gets an unexpected call to adventure.
One of you must do this.
And eventually accepts it. Along the way, he meets a mentor, someone that guides him, someone that provides intelligence.
A wizard is never late, Frodo Baggins.
He gets to a point in his journey that we call crossing the threshold. Imagine a line that divides our ordinary world from a special one, and he crosses it, with the knowledge he may not return back. Our hero is then tested. He battles a few enemies, achieves some small victories, but then he faces off his nemesis, and he is defeated. Crushed. He goes to a state of rebirth. He recollects his once lost powers and is rewarded with new ones. This ultimately leads to defeating his arch enemy. After all that adventure, our hero returns back home. But this once familiar place is not so familiar anymore. Something has changed. Actually, he has changed. His view of the world has changed. And with this, the circle is completed and can start anew. Now let's see how Pantheon's story fits this outline. Atreus was born on slopes of Mount Targon. That is our ordinary world. He was named after a star in a constellation of war, known as Pantheon. When Atreus grew older, he joined a military order. One time when he and his fellow soldiers were on a patrol, they were ambushed by bandits, Atreus being one of few that survived the attack. He later begged his superiors to do something about these trespassers, because it wasn't the first time that something like this had happened. After they denied his plea, Atreus decided to take matters into his own hands. This is our call to adventure. He decided that he would capture the godlike powers that receive those who climb to the top of Mount Targon. His determined will eventually got him there, and as he stood up on the peak of the mountain, Pantheon, the aspect of war himself, stepped down from heaven. This event checks out two of our boxes in the hero's journey. For once, Atreus meets his mentor, or at least he thinks that Pantheon would be someone that would guide him. But there is a little twist in our monomyth. Pantheon actually deems Atreus unworthy, and to make things worse, instead of just rejecting him, he takes control over his body to pursue his own ends. Atreus meeting Pantheon also serves as the cross line, dividing our ordinary world from a special one. Atreus, now controlled by Pantheon, goes on a quest of slaying Darkins, and ancient living weapons. This quest serves as a test for our hero, but he inevitably runs into someone much stronger than him. He got caught in a battle with a Darkin called Aatrox, and something unbelievable has happened. The Darkin drove his blade into Atreus' chest, a blow so strong that it killed the god of war inside his body. But Atreus endured. With his unwillingness for defeat, he survived. He was reborn. Now fully conscious and newly equipped with the aspect spear and a shield, he was ready to get his revenge. In his second face-off with Aatrox, he was able to cut off his opponent's sword arm, ending the battle for good. Atreus then returned back home, but as a new person. The aspect's godlike weapons, combined with the determined mind of a human, created a hero that vowed to stand against aspects, Darkins, or any other who wield power so great it can only destroy. So, Pantheon's story fits this template perfectly. The question is, how does his music reflect that? The theme is built around one repeating motif. It's a pretty simple, but very catchy tune. The most notable feature of this riff is the leap between a C and a G. This gives the melody a feeling of lifting or rising up, which is the entire motif of Pantheon's story. Falling down and raising back up. The first time we hear the melody, it is sang by a human voice. It is then picked up by the brass section. The brass is the main instrumental unit in this piece. It beautifully captures this triumphant and heroic feeling. The entire musical piece uses a variation form. It means that it takes our single motif and presents it in the different settings and different mood in each variation. As already said, we begin with a singer singing the melody. At this stage, the accompanying orchestra is modest and quiet. This represents Atreus' humble life in his home village. In other words, our ordinary world. The voice then disappears, as a battle-like marching rhythm in drums and trombones takes over. We can compare this to Atreus' acceptance of the call. It's him climbing the mountain, jumping from one edge of a rock to the other. The second variation takes the melody almost unchanged, and puts it in front of the force of the whole orchestra. The tune is played by the whole brass section in different octaves and registers. Let's call this the hero version. This is where Atreus reaches the top of the mountain. This is where he meets Pantheon. But it's also a place where he loses control over his body, which is represented by the absence of the human voice. At this point, he is forced to only watch from the furthest corner of his mind, as the aspect slays hundreds and hundreds of foes. So on one side, this section is very triumphant and glorious. But on the other, there lies a hidden sorrow underneath the surface. Atreus does what he always wanted. He protects his people, his family, but not in a way that he envisioned it. He is kind of forced into it by Pantheon. The third section begins with this harmonics reprise. We go from A flat major to A minor, which is a really unprecedented harmonic progression. The sudden shift to the minor chord suggests there is a great danger coming. This is the moment where Pantheon's spirit is ripped out of Atreus' body by the darkened blade. What follows are repeated arpeggios in a downward motion, which are passed between a harp and a piano. This is Atreus laying on the ground, barely alive. And when all hope seems lost, we get the triumphant marching rhythm in the brass section again. Atreus is standing back up on his feet, refusing to give up. It is his rebirth. And this variation is all about that. He rises as a new man, with his newly equipped arsenal of aspects weapons, and once again regained consciousness. He is ready for the ultimate challenge, to face Aatrox. Their battle is so glorious that it takes a whole section of this piece. This fourth and last original variation has a metal feeling to it, thanks to the electric guitar and the drums. This is a nod to Aatrox's music theme, which has a similar instrumentation and feeling to it. When the battle is over, Pantheon stands victorious, and our triumphant hero version returns, but a little upgraded. We hear a voice singing the melody again, even overpowering the brass section. At one point, the human voice even derails from the set melody and takes its own path, reaching much higher in pitch. Atreus returned back home as a changed man. He lost many of his friends. He conquered the mountain. He faced off against gods and demons alike. He embraced the aspect's powers. But in his core, he still stays the same. A human whose sole purpose is to protect his friends and family. In his core, he still remained a hero. Thanks for watching.